Hey guys, Pie Guy Rules here. Welcome back to Topic of Discussion. Today's topic, more Adventure Time episodes. More specifically, The Great Birdman and Simon and Marcy. I know there's only been 2 episodes, but a few weeks have gone by and I really want to talk about Simon and Marcy, so let's do this. Okay, so first of all, The Great Birdman was a really solid episode. It was really cool. There were some nice twists in it. Basically, Finn and Jake are wandering through the desert doing something for Princess Bubblegum when they come across a Birdman who has all these giant birds. He says he's blind, but his eyes are blatantly in his beard. He turns out to be a character that we've known, who hasn't made an appearance since, like, Season 2. They show Braille in the episode, and it's, like, actual Braille. I don't know, it's just a very interesting episode. You don't know the motives of the Great Birdman. I'm not going to spoil who it is. But you don't know his motives, and I don't know, it's very interesting. It's definitely not one of the funnier ones, but it is definitely, like, psychologically interesting what's going on with that guy, and some weird things happen, and there are some funny moments. But it's a solid episode. It's just like, wow, I can't believe they finally brought that character back. And it's like, do you trust him? Do you not trust him? It was good. It is a good episode. It's very solid. Now, the reason why this video exists when it does is because Simon and Marcy, I want to take some time and talk about this episode. This one got a lot of hype because, Simon and Marcy. After last season's episode, where we get little tidbits of the fact that, we get like the tiniest glimpse of the very soon after post-apocalyptic world, and the Ice King and Marceline's relationship. We get glimpses of it in that episode, but here is the payoff. Here is the real sequel to that episode, and there was a lot of speculation, a lot of hopes, and I think it excelled. It excelled what I had expected. I didn't think they'd go through with it, but they did. This episode takes place almost entirely right after the end. Actually, I guess we don't know how soon the apocalypse is, but the world is definitely not This is very post-apocalyptic world. The world has not been rebuilt yet at this point. It says something like 996 years ago. So it's interesting to see that, first off. And it pretty much picks up where that last episode left off, in that we see the relationship between Simon and Marceline, little Marceline. And it is so heartfelt, the episode. Like, just watch it. It is so... It got me. I didn't cry or anything, but it made me feel, because their relationship, it's not that of a father and a daughter. It's not that. It's that of a grandparent or uncle or, even a cool teacher or just a person in your life when you were a kid that, was an adult, and it didn't talk down to you, but at the same time was still able to talk to you on your level. I think a lot of people have had that. I know I have had that grandparent or uncle or whoever, that was older, but could get you, didn't necessarily get everything, all your references and everything, but was able to talk to you on a level that, not other adults could. And it is just very genuine. You see Simon care about Marceline. You see Marceline care about Simon. You see him doing things that he doesn't want to do, but he does because he has to protect her. We see, it's so genuine, and they don't ruin it. It does cut back to, at the end and at the beginning, there's, the Ice King being all goofy and not remembering anything. But it's not, that doesn't undercut how sweet the entire thing is, Okay, so there as far as it goes without spoiling anything. So if you haven't seen the episode, I highly recommend you go do that now. Alright, so now I'm going to get into some spoilerific stuff, some speculation, I'm going to dig into the episode here. Like I said, watch it if you haven't. If not, you are warned. There are spoilers here on out. The Ice King is it's just such an interesting relationship that and what makes it sad is that, because basically the crown takes takes control of him in the end. He avoids, he tries to avoid putting it on, but he has to fight off bad guys and save Marceline. And the crown ends up taking him in the end. And the reason why he's kooky today, at least in my interpretation, is because he was trying to be silly and upbeat for Marceline. That's not... Simon, you can tell he's an intellectual. He's smart, he's with it, but he acts silly to try and cheer up Marceline. And I think because he was acting silly in his last days as Simon is why the Ice King is so off the walls instead of, violent the way that Finn was when he wore the crown. I think and I think that's what makes it especially heart-wrenching is because going back to my analogy before of a grandparent or, an adult that you got along with when you were a kid, when you get older, at some point that older person is either going to start to get senile and not be able to speak to you on that same level anymore. You kind of surpass them, or they'll get, the worst case scenario is if they get something like Alzheimer's and they can't remember you anymore, which is pretty much what happened to the Ice King and Marceline, is that he can only vaguely remember her. He can't remember all the good times that they had, and that is so heartbreaking because that's real. It's wacky in that it's 1,000 years later, but in reality you have those experiences with people. When you're a kid and age happens. And in the worst, most extreme case, the person dies, and it's gonna happen at some point. And that's just very real, and that's why the episode hit me. Not that I've ever had anyone die on me, but I know someday that the older people who I hold dear in my life will, and that's incredibly sad and incredibly, just a tough emotion to think about. And that's what's great about the episode. It makes you think and it makes you feel sweet. And the episode is not devoid of jokes. There are a few jokes, and the jokes kill me because they're good jokes, first of all. But because the rest of the episode is so, played realistically, it's pretty much zombie apocalypse realistically here. When the jokes do come, they are funny. The Clambulance thing cracked me up. It's like, what? Okay, whatever. The whole, when she was like, don't use the crown, and he's like, and he breaks away and he takes out the crown and he just bashes the zombie over the head with it. And it's just funny. It's hilarious. Those parts are hilarious because they're earned, because you're not expecting a joke necessarily, So, in a way, that's great. And in a way, I think I hope the people behind Adventure Time realize that they can tell stories like this. Tell semi-serious stories so that when they do tell a joke, the jokes kill because you're not expecting them. And here gets to some speculation here. I mentioned calling them zombies. They're not necessarily zombies. They're just kind of blobs of mush that have green spewing from them. But they made me think about the candy people from when they were turned into zombies in the first episode and the other episode when that happened. They kind of looked like blobs of dough or some kind of material. And so, that's my speculation, that this is the beginning of the Candy Kingdom. And at the end, I don't know if anyone else caught this, I'm sure people on the internet have, but at the end, there's a bunch of pink stuff. At the climax, there's a bridge, there's pink stuff. It's like, okay, what is that? Your first thought is, oh, that's probably gum. At the very end, the entire time, the Ice King is searching for some chicken soup for Marceline. And at the very end, chicken soup and a thing to open it, a can opener, just kind of come out of nowhere. They look like they come out of nowhere, but if you look closely and you pay attention, actually, the gum gives it to Simon. And the gum, at the very end, has a happy face on it. That's Princess Bubblegum. Or whatever Princess Bubblegum descended from, like the first princess or prince or king or whoever ruled the land of the Candy Kingdom. That's that right there. And I didn't catch it the first time I watched it, but I watched the episode again, and I'm like, that's it. Like, that is definitely that. And so, because like I said, it not only is there gum with a face, but it's sentient enough to give the Ice King what he wanted. Otherwise it would just be random chicken soup. Like, it seems at first that, oh, okay, so chicken soup just comes randomly. But no, if you pay attention, that's there. And that is cool. And that's what definitely makes me think that the primordial ooze is the beginnings of the candy people. So that's one kind of theory. The other thing, Marceline being sick, even though she doesn't show any real symptoms of being, she sneezes, and the Ice King feels her head, and he's like, oh, you're sick. But she doesn't really show that much signs, and she even says she can fight. Could this be the beginnings of the vampirism? I didn't see any bite marks on her neck, not that I noticed, but I don't know. Could that be that, or could that be some of her demon powers taking, some kind of like demon puberty or whatever? I don't know. Cause it's interesting because she is very much just a little girl in this. She doesn't do any fighting, except there's a part where Simon freezes a deer, and the next morning she has the deer guts prepared on a plate for Simon. And it kind of makes me think, she, like, eviscerated this deer. Simon froze it, sure, but she, like, cut up this deer. And I know it's a survival situation, but she's still a little girl. So there might be aspects of her demon or vampire sides that we didn't necessarily see that are kind of underlying there. And as we saw towards the end, this is definitely the last days of Simon and the first days of the Ice King. So I'm sure she had to take care of him relatively soon, and she wouldn't be able to do that if she didn't have powers, I'd assume. One more thing I wanted to touch upon. The Cheers theme song. What? Yeah, so like I was saying, Simon acts silly, he does little jokes to try and cheer Marcy up. And it's sweet, it does remind me of, like, the jokes that old people would, like, hey, a videotape, they find a VHS tape, let's watch a movie, and he stares at the tape, and he's like, this tape is boring, and it's just, like, old people jokes, and one of the things he does is he finds a TV that's broken, but he picks it up, and he does, like, a little show, in the frame of the TV, and he does Cheers, he sings the Cheers theme song, almost word for word. And he starts, shining a glass, and he's like, hey, Norm, cheers. Okay, and Marceline's like, I don't get it. And then, so that happens. And then at the very end, when he's turning into the Ice King, like, full stop, when, it's taken him over, pretty much, he starts singing it again. In a very ironic echo, And what it could symbolize, other than the fact that Simon probably could really use a drink at that point, is probably the fact that, when you think about it, he loses his identity. And the song is about you want to be in a place where everybody knows your name, and when he becomes the Ice King, no one remembers his name. Only Marceline, and then until the tapes are found out in the Christmas episode, we only ever know him as the Ice King. We didn't know he had a real name. We didn't expect that he would. And I guess the rest of Ooh wouldn't, except for anyone Marceline's told, and it didn't seem like she's told anyone. So, so that's definitely some symbolism there, but it's just so random. It's funny, too, because it's just like, why did they pick, what? Cheers? And it's not like a knockoff of the song. It's pretty much the song. They skip a verse, but it's, he sings it almost word for word. And then another bit of speculation here. He calls, well, this is the fact. He calls Marceline Gunther when he's in Ice King mode, when he's like just coming out of it, or when he's in Ice King mode. He calls her Gunther, and what that means is, one of the things it could mean is that whenever he shows any sympathy towards a penguin and calls it Gunther, because we're not even sure if Gunther is the same penguin every time, that's kind of his morality pet. He equates it to Marceline, or he has some kind of, Gunther has become kind of a code word for, I don't know, something he wants to look after. Maybe it was like a nickname for Marceline or something, or like, I don't know. I don't know where the connection would begin to come from, but if you go on the connection that Gunther kind of means Marceline, anytime when the Ice King's shown any kindness towards Gunther, which, doesn't always happen, but anytime when he kind of looks after Gunther like a pet or, like a little kid, it's kind of, it could be seen as part of the remnants of the Ice King left, or the remnants of Simon left in the Ice King. And that's another interesting thing, is that even when he's in Ice King mode, he does not hurt Marceline. He will not. She tries to get the crown off of him, and, instead of fighting her, he just sprinkles her with snow. He's like, play nice, Gunther. And it's really interesting. It does kind of go with my theory from Finn the Human, where the Ice King is, because he's a smart man and because he's incredibly strong and, a good man, he is able to resist the crown, and his way of preventing evil, basically, is diverting it with goofiness, whereas Finn was just taken over by the crown immediately, and, his heroic actions were very much corrupted by evil, as opposed to Simon here, who, for all being the Ice King he is not evil. He's never evil. He stays on target. He's out of it. He's loopy, but he stays on target. And yeah, it's such an interesting episode, and I'm sure there's some things that I've missed, some speculations and interesting tidbits and stuff, but I really wanted to get this out there because it's just so interesting. I really hope they follow this up with more episodes like this. I'd really like to see kind of what happens. I'd like to see another episode where it is the reversal, where, Simon's become full-on Ice King and Marceline has to take care of him. I'd also like to know what's up, what happened to Marceline's mother. Where was Marceline's dad during all of this? We know from the Fries song, he's there taking care of her when she's a teenager. I guess she hasn't been bitten by vampirism because, I guess that happens when she's a teenager, and that's why she stays a teenager. But, I mean, it's possible she got bit early on, and then, it had staying effects or something. I don't know. It's all so interesting, and if I know them, they've got stuff planned up their sleeves, but they wouldn't have, a movie that explains all of this. They'd have little tidbits and hints in 6 different episodes, and then another 11-minute episode that explains a little bit while raising 28 more questions. But this is definitely the most we've seen of the history of the Land of Oo, and like I said, there's, bubblegum, that's definitely bubblegum. That may or may not be the candy people forming, and even the Clammobile, the Clambulance, made me think of Starchy. It kind of looked like Starchy. But yeah, just very interesting. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed this. I guess basically the way I'm going to be doing these Adventure Time reviews is as soon as there's an episode that I really want to talk about, I'll review all the episodes before it and that one. So, yeah. But leave any speculation or thoughts you have on that episode, or even, the Birdman episode, in the comments, because they're both solid episodes. I will say the Birdman episode did have I predicted the ending, because it kind of loops around to the beginning, but it was still genuine and interesting, and the character pretty much tried to commit suicide. So, yeah. Okay, guys, Pie Guy Rules out. Hey guys, don't forget to subscribe if you like me, like this video if you, like this video, and comment if you have an opinion on anything that I just said. Oh, and I also have a Twitter. Follow me at Pie Guy Rules. I usually respond to any comments or questions that I get. Pie Guy Rules, out.